All right, so we'll take a grounding meditation to get started. So just settling into a comfortable position that is upright with some energy for the alertness, and allowing a sense of ease to settle into the physical body. Closing down the eyes if you're comfortable with that. And feeling the body on the floor, making contact with what you're sitting on, feeling your hands and what your hands are touching. And allowing a breath that feels natural and easy to flow in and out your nose. Start to explore the rhythm of your breath right now. You could find the rhythm by the sound of your breath or the movement of the body, however it's easiest for you to explore your breath here. And starting to get more familiar with your breath, being curious about the aspects of your inhales and your exhales, textures, shapes, lengths, spaces. Feeling the body breathing, feeling the body sitting, and finding that balance of effort and ease, allowing some ease in the physical body. And our effort goes towards our awareness, our attention, just to be in the present moment, to be in the body, and to be with the breath. Coming back to the body, sitting. Coming back into this space fully, opening your eyes when you're ready. So today we're going to talk about rain, and I'll go into tons of information about that. And we're also going to be talking about self-compassion. I know we kind of touched on that a little bit last week. We're going to go into that more this week because what we're really doing is getting closer to our emotional body, right? Because for so many of us, either we only want a certain type of emotions, or we're pushing emotions down. And basically, a lot of us have learned to think we need to control emotions, or not be emotional at all, and like that's the goal, is not to be emotional, right? So as we get more comfortable with this practice and we start to get closer and closer and more familiar with our emotional body, more, it can be sensitive and kind of raw is the word that comes to mind. Just really sensitive, a sensitive area. So this whole, what we did in the first month, we added loving kindness to, right, to soften. So here we're adding self-compassion to kind of soften, to dilute it, I guess, a little, is to kind of make it a little more accessible to be with the emotions that we're experiencing. And I think that this can help us to continue to expand our window of tolerance to what emotions that we can be with and that we can work with. Okay, so that's the plan. All right. So RAIN is an acronym, and it stands for Recognize, Allow, Investigate, and Nurture. I'm just going to give you this. Yeah. So what we were doing last week with our mindfulness of emotions was essentially those first two. We were recognizing emotions as they became present in our experience, and we were allowing them as best we could to be what they were, and allowing any emotion to be, not trying to change them. So we have essentially been working on R and A of RAIN last week. So the I is investigate. And so I think the biggest thing to point out on investigate is we're not investigating with our thinking mind. We're taking our awareness into the body and we're investigating where that emotion is presenting itself in our body. And then nurture. So the nurture is where that self-compassion practice can come in. There is we're recognizing when we have an emotion, we're allowing it to be whatever it is. We bring our effort to seeing if we can find it in the body, and then we basically ask, what does this need? What does this part need? How does that part feel? And then what does that part need? And we start to self-soothe. And again, we're expanding our window of tolerance for difficult emotions. Okay. Let's see. So where this can be really helpful is when we get stuck emotionally. So, we're having emotions all of the time, and happiness and joy. We don't necessarily need to work our RAIN practice with happiness and joy and the emotions that fall on the pleasant side. RAIN is really intended to be a tool. It's a tool to help us to get unstuck from a strong emotional situation, and a tool to help us get closer to our challenging emotions instead of dissociating or going into a trance or having negative opinions about emotions that we don't find are acceptable. So it's really a tool, it's a practice. So just repeating, recognize is, R is the recognize what is going on, consciously acknowledging the thoughts, feelings, and behaviors that are affecting you. Allowing the experience to be there just as it is. letting the thoughts, emotions, feelings, or sensations that you've recognized simply be there without trying to fix them or avoid them. And then, so recognize and allow, we notice the emotions and we're making room for them. So that's basically, we're splitting RAIN into two parts. The first part is noticing the emotions, the R, and then making room for them, the A, allowing. And then investigate and nurture are the second pair. And so we're investigating with interest and care. We're bringing in a natural curiosity to know the truth and direct a more focused attention to our present experience. So, instead of, like for me, feeling a strong emotion and then running the other way from it by either shutting it down or dissociating from my body, really intentionally turning the attention inward to see what's there and how it affects the emotion that I'm experiencing when I bring my full attention to it. A lot of times it just goes away or it dissipates. When I can keep my mind out of it, I have a better relationship with my emotions. And then the nurture with self-compassion. So we're intentionally nurturing our inner life with self-care. And we'll do this by sensing what the wounded or frightened or hurting place inside of us most needs, and then offering some gesture of active care that might address this need. So when we practice self-compassion, the difference between compassion and empathy is that compassion has an action. So the start of those two are very similar. Being empathetic and compassionate, we're like understanding that there's something going on, right? And acknowledging that it's challenging and difficult. What compassion does a step beyond empathy is there's an active step. There's an action that happens with compassion. And when we are practicing self-compassion, that's some kind of self-nurturing action that we give back to ourselves. And we're going to go through that here in a minute, some of those self-compassion practices. So how this looks in a formal seated practice. So we've talked about this before. We have our formal practice and we have our informal practice. Our formal practice is when we decide we're going to sit down and meditate, and we, for a certain amount of time. It doesn't matter if it's 1 minute, 10 minutes, or 40 minutes. When we intentionally sit down and meditate, that's our formal practice. So when we sit down in our meditation practice, we're going to use a recent situation where we've had a challenging emotion, where we might feel stuck or just remember having some strong emotions. And we're going to bring that situation to mind in as much detail as possible. And then we'll work the 4 steps of RAIN on that specific thing. And so what we're doing is we are working with something that is recent and close. So we have things that come up and present to us like it's like an opportunity to work on the things that we need to work on. So that's why we choose something recent, because we've had something recent pop up, and that's like something right there. It's a low-hanging fruit, basically. We're not trying to go back to our childhood and work on issues that are way back there. We're trying to work on what is in my life right now that I am feeling stuck on, or that I've had a challenging emotional situation on, and then work the process that way. We work the RAIN practice that way. So essentially what we're doing is we're making a U-turn, is we're turning our awareness back towards ourselves. bringing the attention to what is right inside of us right then. And we're moving away from creating stories and where the feelings are, we're moving away from the story to where we can feel the feelings in our body. So that's what we're doing here. And there's actually a fifth step that's called after the rain. And after we've completed the active steps of rain, we'll come back and we'll notice the quality of our own presence, and we'll rest in that wakefulness and that space of tenderness. So that after the rain is really important, because that's when we start creating new neural pathways. When we're like, okay, this is how it feels when I work it this way. When I work my emotions in this intentional way with a sharp attention to what is happening in my body and giving myself self-compassion, this is how it feels, and this is what happens to my emotions. So again, we are just retraining our nervous system, basically. And so this practice helps us to gain wisdom around our emotional world. And this process is not resisting. So what happens when we resist emotions instead of accept them is we tend to hold that in our body, right? And that then comes out in other ways. And it may take some time to come out, but it often comes out in pain in the body or illness. So I just want to reiterate again that we are not only gaining wisdom towards our emotional world, but we are also stopping the resistance that many of us are doing and processing the emotions that are there instead of holding on to them and not processing them, and then that just remaining in the body, and then some negative effect coming. There's going to be a negative consequence to that that's going to come out in some way. Okay, so I'm going to move on to self-compassion here. Self-compassion is strongly linked to well-being and fewer negative mind states like depression, stress, anxiety, and PTSD. When people are kinder to themselves or able to be with their suffering in a more supportive way, they have fewer negative outcomes. At the same time, it is linked to positive outcomes like life satisfaction, happiness, optimism, and thriving. So what it might look like when we are not practicing self-compassion: criticizing ourselves when we fall short of our ideals, reacting harshly that you distort your own reality, resulting in a warped reality. We could also be judging our reactions and patterns. So it's really important to know that these cycles that tend to be our tendencies are our ego cycles, and they are part of our part of being human. They are basically what we've inherited in this human life. So we're just learning how to do some things a different way. Self-judgment cannot stop self-judgment. So instead of judging our emotions, we're going to be compassionate and replace it with a kinder response. So, if we're ever challenged with How can I apply self-compassion to this situation? A really easy little reminder is treating yourself like a good friend. How would your good friend treat you in this situation if they were soothing you? Let's see. Okay, so some core components of self-compassion: mindfulness, seeing things as they are. Are we tender and supportive, or are we cold and critical? We don't want to ignore difficulty and run away from it, but also we need to keep things balanced so we're not feeding the story with drama. So mindfulness gives us balance and perspective. Another core component of self-compassion is self-kindness. When we see that suffering is occurring and we turn towards it, then we need to be kind and supportive to ourselves, understanding with ourselves. And this is an intentional act of being a good friend to yourself, giving yourself warmth, kindness, and understanding with the desire to relieve your own suffering. And the third core component of self-compassion is common humanity, feeling connected with others in this experience of life. So, sometimes it can be soothing to be like, I am feeling this really strong emotion of loss, and there are other humans in the world right now that are feeling the exact same way that I'm feeling. They have lost someone and they're feeling the same way. So that can also just help us to feel more connected and not so isolated, and that can be soothing as well. So that's really just a mental shift. You can think of self-compassion as a form of emotional regulation that you can put as another tool in your tool belt. Okay. Okay. So some ways that we can practice self-compassion. We went through a couple of these last week, is with that physical touch, the giving yourself a hug, even rubbing your own arm or holding your hand and rubbing your hand. You could also place both hands on the chest and maybe even give a little bit of pressure. That's a form of self-compassion. And so when we start to find these things, the self-compassion practices that work for us, we just try them out. Like, placing your hands over your heart and closing your eyes and giving just a little bit of pressure, and then noticing, okay, how does this feel? Does this make me feel safe? Is this calming? And if it isn't, then we can try the next one. Okay, how does this feel? Does this feel calming? And does this help me feel safe? And just working through the different ways that we can practice self-compassion to find the ones that are really helpful to us. So another physical touch for self-compassion is cradling your face with your hands. We have a lot of nerve endings in our hands and in our face, and so this soothes our nervous system. Really, it can soothe our nervous system really fast, but some people don't like to have their hands on their face, so that's why we have multiple ways. Let's see. We can also explore the messages, like, it's okay, I'm here with you, I love you, this is hard, I know it's hard, and even the pet names, like, it's okay, honey, can be soothing also. So we are going to do our first RAIN practice of self-compassion. So we're going to kind of mix the two here. And So just finding a comfortable seated position, trying to be as relaxed as possible and alert and awake. Closing your eyes if you're comfortable with that, and starting to turn the attention inward. Feeling the breath coming in and out of the lungs. Feeling the chest rising and falling. Feeling the sensation of your breath coming in and out of the nostrils. Settling into your natural rhythm of breath. Being aware of your presence here. Maybe adding some ease to the physical body. Relaxing in the face, softening the eyes and mouth. Softening the shoulders. Softening the belly. Feeling the movement of the chest and belly as you breathe. And just starting to feel the whole body breathing here. Relaxing, settling. And again, sensing your quality of presence. And I invite you now to scan your life and notice if there is a repeating situation that's going on that brings up emotional reactivity or self-judgment. Some way maybe that you turn on yourself. Maybe there's self-aversion or a critical voice. Just scanning and looking for a situation that you can work with. Nothing that's falls into a traumatic experience that has too strong of emotions. Could have something to do with a relationship with others at home or at work, or something to do with your habits or your health. And when you've landed on something, bring that situation to mind, seeing as much detail of it as you can, any sights, sounds, smells, tastes, something recent. Visualize where you are when it's happening, see the room you're in. If there's somebody else involved, see them, their face, what they might be saying. Trying to connect to the actual experience as much as possible. And then sensing, what is the worst part of this for you? The R of rain is really to pause and recognize, okay, what is happening? And just notice whatever the most dominant emotion is. It might be the inner critical voice, or it might be a feeling of fear or anxiety, shame, maybe numbness. And it really helps to whisper to yourself, a mental whisper of what it is that you're working with. Self-judgment, self-aversion, anger, fear, just mentally whispering it, fully recognizing it as best you can. and allowing it, letting whatever is coming up to be there. It's like saying, this belongs right in this moment, acknowledging it without pushing it away. And you could mentally whisper something like, yes, or this belongs, or let be, just to allow space for what's here. Recognizing and allowing space. And now you can begin the investigation. And the investigation is primarily in your body. Investigate with curiosity and gentleness. How is this living inside of me right now? And you could ask yourself, what am I believing? Am I believing that I've failed, that I'm a bad person, that I'll never change, that others will reject me, that I'm not lovable? A belief might come up easily, but if it doesn't, just see where the feelings are strongest in the body. If you're believing that you're a failure or that you're flawed, where do you feel that in your body? Maybe in your chest or your belly. Where is it? And when you find it, or if you find it, you could place your hand there, just inviting whatever is there to just come forward in your body and breathing with it. You might ask yourself, what am I unwilling to feel? Or what is the worst part of this? Breathing with what is there, feeling it in your body. And the last part of investigating is to sense, what does this part of me that feels terrible or that feels unlovable or vulnerable, what does it most need? How does it want me to be with it? Would it want to be seen, understood, loved, forgiven, accepted? And as you feel into that, we transition into the N of rain, nurturing. Let yourself witness and listen from your most awake, wise heart, just sensing, what does that part need most? And you can offer some message of care. You could place your hand on your heart. You could send a message that could be comforting, like you're okay, or you're enough, or trust your goodness. I'm here and I'm not leaving. I'm with you. You're held in love. Just offering yourself some self-compassion. Even if it feels like you're just going through the motions, there is a deeper part of you that wants to hold yourself with love. And if it does feel very difficult, you could call on some larger source of love, like a friend or a grandparent or a teacher or a spiritual figure or your beloved pet or a formless presence. And imagine that love is flowing into you through them, coming into your vulnerable place. Could imagine that light is flowing in, warming you, receiving, So here we have the intention to let that self-compassion in, to receive that self-compassion. We're letting in love, letting it wash through your body, letting it wash through your entire being. The final part of the practice, after the rain, where you sense the quality of the presence that has emerged. Maybe you notice there's more space or more tenderness. Maybe you notice there's more openness or freedom. And maybe it's just a very small amount, but that could be very profound. Whatever you notice, just noticing that shift from where you started and where your quality of presence is now. And what would your experience be like if you really trusted that nothing is wrong with you? Nothing needs to be fixed. Simply resting here in this spaciousness, in this kind presence, loving awareness. Coming back into this space, back into the room, opening your eyes when you're ready. So the rain practice is definitely not a one and done practice. It is just like awareness of thoughts and awareness of breath. There's a skill that we develop. And I also find the investigate to be the hardest step in it. And in my experience, when I was intentionally practicing rain regularly, is when I broke through that challenging aspect of the investigate step. And it took me time to get out of my head and to get into my body. And I think one part of that is really the name of the step, investigate. So like when I think of investigate, it's like thinking through something and, finding the root cause and, going back and thinking about this. And, it's all thinking. And so it just took me a while to understand how that step is, how to actually practice that step without my mind really getting involved. And the reason why I say that, like, this is my favorite practice, like, this is definitely my favorite practice, is because of the profound benefits that I found, that I received after I broke through that how to investigate. And what I found was I was so dissociated from my body that I wasn't actually feeling anything in my body. I was just living up here. And when I could make that, when I finally was able to get out of my mind and drop into my body and feel the emotions in my body, like, it was freeing for me. I really changed how my relationship with my emotional world. And it helped me with my mindfulness of thoughts, and it helped me with my self-critical voice, and helped me to understand better my flow of reactions, the way my reactivity of my emotions. It just helped me to and it helped me to put more space in there too. So okay, this is an emotion that I'm feeling. Okay, this is where I'm feeling it in my body. And then I then found that I started, when I found an emotion in my body, what I found most of the time was that it was in my stomach area, in my abdominal region, and that I was tightening my abdominal muscles. And when I found that I was tightening my abdominal muscles, I found that that was pulling on my hip flexors. And then I found that that was creating all this tightness in my hips. And so it helped me to find this new process of how I deal with my emotions. Like, okay, there's a strong emotion. This is where I feel it in my body. Okay, where can I let go? And just start to stop the reactions. And also, it helped me to kind of reverse engineer that of, sometimes I would feel the pulling in my hip flexors and my abdomen before I realized that I was having a strong emotion. I would start to feel it in my body before I acknowledged the emotion was there. And then oh, I'm feeling anxious right now. And I found it in my body first. So that's just how I experienced it. And it all started from getting more and more comfortable with the RAIN practice and that investigate step. So keep going. So you could bring to mind any situation, like at work or with a person that you had strong emotions. It could be a situation where you maybe reacted away and maybe wish you had reacted differently, or had a strong reaction. It could also be, like for some of us people pleasers, is you more got stuck in it and you didn't react at all and you just held it in. Because sometimes reacting helps us move through it. So it could be something that you regret that you didn't process more and that you're more holding on to it. So something you might want to process more. It could also be a habit. I could do, eventually I want to do more work around my emotional eating. And I'm starting to see okay, whenever I'm feeling this way, I'm soothing myself with this types of food. So that's an area that I want to work on. I want to get in more for myself. So any habits that you find are associated with emotions, you can work on those. And strong emotions that maybe you're just not accepting, that you're shutting down, it's not okay for me to have that emotion. That's something else that you could work with. Some other ways that this practice is important is it's helping us with this presence that we're bringing to our emotional world. it's allowing us to be the witness of these emotions instead of identifying with it and just like sinking down into it. It helps us to have a better understanding and be more clear about our reality. And we're not trying to get from bad to good. We're trying to get from sleep to awake, or from dissociating to being in it and actually feeling it, coming into a place that's more real. And how this might look in our daily life. So we talked about how it looks in our formal practice. The way that it can look in our informal practice is, we've got a strong emotion that comes up and we start working through our RAIN steps. So, this week, during the week, we're going to do it in our formal practice, and we're going to get a little more familiar with each of the steps and the phrasing and what we like, what we don't necessarily want to work with, what we don't necessarily want to use, finding the things we do want to use, and then just practicing those and just getting more comfortable and more familiar with them. And as this skill gets stronger and stronger, then we can use the RAIN steps in our informal life when we've got, we're just in it. So right now we're picking something that's already happened. When our skill gets stronger, we'll use it in real time. When a strong emotions comes up, recognize, allow, find it in the body, self-soothe, it's bringing us back to reality and getting us out of that trance even faster. All right, so let's close up this container. Let's start with a gratitude practice, bringing to mind something or someone for that you are grateful. And, right here we can start to explore how we feel gratitude in the body, if we can feel it in the body. And maybe also seeing how there's not just one emotion, but emotions can lead or be attached to other emotions. I'm practicing gratitude and it's increasing my joy. And we'll close this meditation with some loving kindness. May you be filled with loving kindness. May you be happy, healthy, and safe. May your family and friends be filled with loving kindness. May they be happy, healthy, and safe. May those that we find challenging and don't understand be filled with loving kindness. May they be happy, healthy, and safe. May all beings be filled with loving kindness. May all beings be happy, healthy, and safe. Thank you for your practice. Namaste.